If someone has authority in the world, it's because they've received that authority from someone else who's commissioned them or blessed them or sent them in some fashion, or has given them this piece of paper that says, here's your degree, you now have authority, right? We know that's how that works. If I am an authority, it's not because I stand on my own shoulders. It's because I stand on the shoulders of someone before me who is wise, or who commissioned me, or who sent me, or who blessed me, or who officiated me in whatever manner. I am a mediator between people if I am an authority. However, power, in contrast, is the ability for me to make something happen. It's not the right to act on behalf of someone else. It's the ability to make something happen myself. And Jesus' authority was so compelling on that Sabbath because he proved his authority by the use of his power. This demon-possessed man comes forward, and the demon within that man says, "Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are. You're the Holy One of God." And listen closely to the response of Jesus. What does he say? Well, here's what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, "By the power of Adonai, I command you. By the power of this temple of God, I say to you. By the power of the holy tabernacle, I adjure you. By the might of the nation of Israel, by the glory of the law of Moses." There is no appeal to authority. Jesus just says, "Quiet, come out of him." And then it happens. It simply happens. Jesus wields power that only God can wield. And if you're sitting there and you're witnessing this happen, there is a very specific reason why this is revolutionary to you. Because what you're witnessing has never been your experience of authority ever before this. If you were to live in the time of Jesus, and if you were to live in the modern day, and someone who has authority goes forth to wield power, what does that power do? Well, that human power is going to tend to put people here and put people here and separate. If I was a Jewish man or a Jewish woman and I had a demon in me and I went to any other synagogue on any other Sabbath and I walked in, what would happen is that rabbi at the front would look at me and that rabbi would point to me and said, "You cannot be here, get out." And the attendants would come and throw me out. This was the way that Israel dealt with evil. It removed the people who had evil. And so what's the story? If I had leprosy, get out. You must leave. If I was a prostitute, get out. You must go. If I was a sinner or a tax collector, you cannot be part of this community. Leave. The authorities of my day would have looked at the evil within me and then separated me from everybody. I would have been cast away, rejected, ejected. I would have been isolated. I would have been taken away against my will from all the people that I loved. This is how it worked. And then comes this rabbi who speaks with the authority of God and the power of God. And I watch what that power of God does. Because an evil man comes into the midst of this power, and what does that power do? Jesus did not throw the man out of the synagogue. He used divine power to take the evil away from him. But the gospel doesn't say that the man left the synagogue. It says that the demon left the synagogue. This is why the power of this rabbi was so convincing and so compelling. All of the people of Israel, just like you and I in our own day, have been nothing but battered and torn and ripped apart and pushed and shoved and pulled by every authority that wants our attention and our obedience. And we just keep shifting up our hands saying, who's trustworthy? Whose authority is worthy of me? Whose authority is worthy of my obedience, of my submission? And this is why we fear authority in our day, because authority which wields power over us, we then allow it to have influence upon us. We give it some measure of control over our thoughts and our words and our actions. And when a power is bigger and more powerful than us, we know instinctively that if it wants to crush me, it can, if I give it that permission. And it can separate me from everybody if it wants to, if I give it that permission. And it can isolate me and reject me. And this is what all human authority does. You don't believe what I believe? You're not on my squad. Get away from me. And so we have every human faction in our world that thinks the enemy is every other human faction in our world. But this is not how divine power works. Divine power convinces me finally because it doesn't separate me. But divine power works by removing evil from me and making me whole. And if you and I in our lives are able to take that nugget and hold that nugget to your heart and hold on to that for the rest of your life, you could take that to the bank. That this is the kind of authority that God brings into the world. Not the authority that appeals to some other limited understanding, not the authority that divides and separates and isolates and removes. It's merely the kind of authority and a power that receives me, warts and all, and simply removes evil from my midst so that I may remain before God healed.